The UFC's Octagon has touched down in Des Moines, Iowa for UFC Fight Night this Saturday. We're kicking off the May schedule with a bantamweight main event. Cory Sandhagen versus Deiveson Figueiredo. Hello, everybody. Brett Okamoto alongside my good pal and betting expert, Ian Parker. We are here to break down the entire UFC Fight Night card and all of Ian Parker's best bets for that card in Des Moines, Iowa. But before we do, we will go recap the card last week. How did we do at the window in last week's effort, Ian?
You know, it could have been a lot better. Luckily, we hit our premium play. The one play that took this from being a okay night, that could have been a great night, was Alaskarov over 1.5 rounds. He tagged Maize at the end. Muniz kind of threw it away, and that really, that killed us. Michel Pereira, usually someone we can rely on to make us some money. Terrible. He just didn't look good at all, didn't pull the trigger, and he showed the opposite of showing out. Elder over 1.5 worked out great. Wellmaker looked phenomenal. We're good to go. Let's bounce back this week. Well, not even bounce back. Let's just have a much better week. I'm looking to go premium play back-to-back. Let's go.
All right. Well, we'll be waiting on that premium play. We'll see when that comes on the card. For now, we'll talk about the main event. Cory Sandhagen, Deiveson Figueiredo. This is Figueiredo's 5th fight at bantamweight. Odds makers do not like his chances here. He's a big underdog, plus 385 against Cory Sandhagen, minus 575. How are we looking to bet this one, Ian?
I like the way you put that. The odds makers do not like this. No, you know what? I don't really like it for Figueiredo either. You know, look, Figgy's had a good run at this weight class, obviously suffering from his first loss, but he's fighting someone in Sandhagen that stylistically, outside of, you know, rocking Cory, which doesn't happen to Cory essentially ever, I don't see where Figgy wins this fight. He's not going to out-grapple him. He's not going to out-cardio him. He's not going to out-strike him. So for me, I think this is Sandhagen's real opportunity to show out in another 5-round main event and make this exciting and just get a dominant win. More than likely, I'm going to lean towards a decision here because that's just the way Cory fights. If a knockout presents itself, for sure, but Figueiredo's not the type that gets knocked out. If you could sub him, we saw Moreno do it, maybe, but this feels like it's going to be one of those Cory Sandhagen lateral movement, dancing around, landing jabs, landing good combinations, setting a pace. He's going to be part of our parlay. I think Sandhagen wins this by decision, which will be my prop of the night. We're getting a good number at minus 140. I just don't see this really going any other way.
Yeah, good opportunity here for Cory Sandhagen, who kind of feels like we still have not seen quite his ceiling. He has fought the best of the division, and a guy who a lot of people have pegged as a future champion, still looking to do so there at 135 pounds. Let's go to 185 pounds now. It's Reiner Ditter taking on Bo Nickel. And if you've been waiting to bet on Bo Nickel, maybe this is your chance. You get him down to minus 350. I mean, this guy has been pretty much impossible to bet on unless you're taking him in a first round type of stoppage. He is minus 350 here against Reiner Ditter. How are we trying to bet this one?
You know, it's interesting. Ditter, I didn't really think he looked great against Gerald Meerschaert. Granted, he got that late submission. It was a sloppy fight on the feet. He looked inept. And then against Kevin Holland, he just made it look easy with that submission, right? So it's hard to really gauge. If you've watched Ditter in the past, you know, against Anatoly Malikin, where he got knocked out twice, he's now fighting someone in Bo Nickel, to your point, has just been very dominant. And then we saw him against Paul Craig, where he didn't even utilize his wrestling. He was worried about the submissions. He'll tell you he wasn't worried. He'll tell you he just wanted to work on his striking because that's where he was better at in that fight. Didn't want to even give Paul Craig a chance, which, okay, there's some validity to that. However, when you're that good of a wrestler and you're that physically strong on top, I don't see how Paul Craig could have subbed him even off his back. In this fight, this is going to either be a stand-up fight where I believe Bo Nickel is the better striker here. I don't know how many times you're going to hear that throughout his career. Or he's going to be on top with his wrestling and be landing punches while defending submission attempts from Ditter. And that's where I see this really playing out. If Bo Nickel doesn't knock him out in the first round, this is going to feel like a 3-round play. I'm going to go with Bo Nickel to win and over 1.5 rounds. We're going to get that minus 350 way further down to minus 102, almost even money. I think if he does get a finish, it'd be later on. We saw Ditter get tired against Gerald Meerschaert. It was just that Meerschaert got more tired. Bo Nickel's got a good gas tank, over 1.5 and the win. Let's take that one to the pay window.
Yep, makes sense. Bo Nickel has shown that he's going to be a pretty smart fighter as well. So I don't think he'll be looking to rush things there against what odds makers are obviously clearly calling by far his most competitive fight today. Let's move to the heavyweight division. Thomas Peterson, Don'Tale Maize. Thomas Peterson minus 265 here, and you are taking him and the over to drop it down to minus 175.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that Don'Tale Maize is still in the UFC. Quite a bunch of losses in a row. Even his wins haven't, outside of the one where he got a knockout, the rest have been decisions. He makes very poor choices. This is a guy who's big and he's athletic, but he's fighting someone in Peterson who's a very good wrestler. His striking looked a lot better. The cardio looked good in his last fight. But Maize is not the easiest to finish, unless Peterson gets him down early and gets in a dominant position on top. I don't see it happening that quick, so we're going to get that number down. Another one. Peterson over 1.5. I think if he does get a finish, it'll be towards the latter part of the second round. So let's go with this number and get it from minus 265 to minus 175. Peterson will get another win.
All right, so play on Peterson and the over. We'll go to your next best bet, which is a couple of familiar names in 38-year-old Santiago Ponzinibbio and Daniel Rodriguez. What are you thinking about this matchup?
So this is an interesting play for me, right? Ponzinibbio in his last couple wins has been come from behind knockouts, and D-Rock won a split decision over Morano where he looked slow. He didn't look great, and then he lost two prior to that, one where he was knocked out by Ian Machado Gary. And I think between the two here, Ponzinibbio is the one who just has more in the tank. He's the better striker, carries more power, and I don't really see where Rodriguez beats Ponzinibbio. Betting him at 38 on the Pons, I don't love it. But this particular matchup, and still showing that last fight against Carlston Harris, he has that knockout power, especially in the third round. So if he's carrying that through 3 rounds, he can land a Rodriguez. Rodriguez does not have good head movement either with his strikes. He tends to leave himself on the center line. Ponzinibbio minus 115. I thought this line would have been closer to minus 145, so I believe we're getting value here on Ponzinibbio.
Yeah, certainly. If you thought it was going to be minus 145, that is a good little piece of value there on the Pons, as you just called him. I like that, 38-year-old, the Pons, yeah. Ponzinibbio. Let's move to another pair of familiar names at the bantamweight division. Is Miesha Tate taking on Yana Santos. Miesha Tate did not get a fight in 2024. Yana Santos went 1-0 last year, so not a whole lot of activity between these two, but they're matching up here in the first fight card in May. What are you thinking about this 135-pound matchup?
Look, for me, I'm going to go with Miesha Tate here. The reason being is that, she took the year off to kind of heal up, get herself back into this, get herself in the best shape of her life, and she's getting an opponent that fits her style. Yana Santos is a clinch fighter, decent kickboxer, but and we saw Miesha's striking has gotten, better as the years have gone on, but where this fight is going to really be the difference maker, Brett, is the wrestling of Miesha Tate. Once she puts Yana Santos on her back, Yana's got literally no jiu-jitsu, so there'll be no threat from defense. She'll be trying to stand up. Miesha has true wrestling, not just jiu-jitsu wrestling, but actual wrestling. I like Miesha Tate here. I believe she gets it done. I wouldn't go much higher than this number, but she should get the win here.
Okay, so as long as it's at minus 150, it's a best bet from Ian Parker. And you got one more for us, and it's on Gaston Bolaños. What do you think about this fight?
I like Bolaños a lot in this play. In this spot, his opponent's lost 2 in a row. Bolaños is coming off, one of his better performances. He's a very good striker. He's got good durability. As long as he doesn't get in a weird position in a scramble, which he tends to not put himself in those positions, I think this number should be higher here. I think this number is where it's at because he's not a familiar name, possibly with the books. Maybe it's a surprising. I thought he would have been a little bit higher as well. I think Bolaños gets it done here. I think that number is a very strong number at minus 140.
All right, so there you go. There's 5 plays for UFC Fight Night in Des Moines, Iowa. You've got 4 best bets and then the premium play, which, as Ian mentioned, trying to hit that for the second week in a row. That's the big one, and we're going with Bo Nickel and the over of 1.5 rounds. Thomas Peterson, Ponzinibbio, Miesha Tate, Bolaños rounding out our UFC best bets. We've got a couple more orders of business. We got the parlays coming up. The first one we'll do is the long shot parlay. Where are we going in Iowa?
Yeah, let's have a little bit of fun. Let's go Bo Nickel to win by KO, TKO, or DQ, which won't happen. But with the knockout, I could see it being in top position or landing that left as he did against one of his other opponents earlier on. Ditter does not have the best chin. He gets tired as the fight goes on. We're going to go with that one. Jillian Robertson to win by submission. She's either going to win by submission or decision against Marina Rodriguez, who has said, I have one more left in me. She's coming off a bunch of losses in a row. Huge advantage on the ground for Robertson. And last but not least, Petrovic over Juliana Miller to win by decision. I think this is going to be a 3-round grapple fest or a boring kickboxing fight, which Petrovic has a major advantage.
Yep, and a nice little 17-1 payout on ESPN bets. And now we go to the final order of business. That is Ian Parker's parlay for this UFC Fight Night.
Yeah, last week we missed it by 1, and I can't believe it was the one I didn't expect. Under 2.5 and Flick and Schnell. Can't believe that went all 3. But let's go with Sandman, Cory Sandhagen. We're going to go with Montel Jackson. That number has gone up from minus 190 to minus 200 in the last few hours. I expect that number to still go higher. Mason Jones against Jeremy Stevens. That should be a really fun fight. And last but not least, back to the well on Jillian Robertson over Marina Rodriguez. Plus 168, a four-legger. It is chalky. If it wins, that's all that matters. Let's go.
You can find it on ESPN2 and ESPN Plus, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. It's a UFC Fight Night, and it's a good fight at the top. Cory Sandhagen, will he make a big statement against a former flyweight champion, Deiveson Figueiredo, or will Figueiredo surprise us as a plus 385 underdog? Hopefully we made you a little bit smarter and a little bit richer come Saturday. Thank you for watching UFC Best Bets. We'll be back for UFC 315 in Montreal next week.